Priscilla.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Scottsdale BeachFest 2020. A little housekeeping with the COVID. We've been given a reprieve by the city of Scottsdale to not have to wear masks when we're in the sand. And once we get out of the sand, we got to put the masks back on. But since we're technically over here and we're in the sand, we can take our masks down and talk just without through the mask. So why don't we do that?
Perfect.
That's nice not to have to wear those. But it is important. Everybody here has done a good job of respecting social distancing, keeping everybody safe. It's not just the parents and the players, it's the crew, it's the Westworld operations people, it's all the animals in the back. So it's a very comprehensive set of guidelines that we've followed. And this is day 8, and everybody's had a great time. The city's come in here and take a look. They're fine with it. So here we are.
Yes.
It's nice to get the majority of it done. So before we get into your book, how's your club? How was One Beach? How did One Beach? How have they been playing? How have they been enjoying this week?
I think enjoying it, yes. Some very long days of
Yeah.
volleyball, but thankfully we're not in the heat out there. Yesterday we concluded the Club v Club, and we finished third in silver.
Great.
So for Division 1, and then Division 2 and Division 3 were the prior days. So
Yeah, another nice thing that some of the other coaches have talked about is going home and sleeping in their own bed. Having such high level of competition here in Arizona, here in Scottsdale, having them to travel over here, and the importance of having players have a road game. We have a lot of opportunities to have a road game. If you want high competition level, you're usually going west. You're usually going to California. But having them come over here, the out of town coaches said, no, it's important for our girls to prepare for college, to be
Yes.
more valuable and ready as one of the 12 collegiate athletes, that they have a road game. So they very much liked that they came over here. It's a different environment than they're used to on the beach. So, but us locals, I'm really happy to go home and sleep in my own bed.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I think we were talking about that a little bit. I just love the club versus club format. Um, you know, Having coached at the high school level and the college level, there's prior to the club versus club format, there's really no format other than high school that prepares you for that collegiate, dual situation. So I love that. That was really exciting to see.
So speaking of college, tell us about how did who introduced you to volleyball? Let's start right at the beginning. How did you get into volleyball?
So I got into volleyball actually in fourth grade.
Nice.
My PE teacher, and you have to remember this is the 80s, so it wasn't like it is now. This is, it was a completely different situation. So we had to do a book report on a sport. I had played volleyball tennis over a little tennis net. She taught us how just to bump the ball over the tennis net.
Fun.
Super fun. And did a book report on volleyball, and just very soon after that started playing. So I grew up in Austin, Texas. Basically don't know how in the world this all lined up, but literally the trifecta of the 3 people in Austin, Texas who are responsible for the indoor game becoming so amazing. Austin Juniors, my very first club experience, and the beginning of all juniors in Austin was Glenn Litsky, Al Bennett. I don't think Mick Haley was a part of that, but he was certainly an influencer in that club in the very, very early days. And so I played indoor from 5th grade until forever. My parents had me run track and play basketball, but volleyball was my love.
Nice. Wonderful. So you and I both have transitioned to the outdoor game. So how did that happen? When did you leave indoor, or start focusing on the sand?
So I was coaching high school indoor at Millennium, and they were going to be starting a beach program. And I'd done like a couple clinics. I'd been doing a couple things. I played a little bit because I lived in California, so I played a little bit when I lived there, but certainly wasn't my game. But then I began coaching it, and I fell in love with it from having started the program at Millennium. And I loved the format. I loved how everything was done. I loved the culture of it. I knew the culture, obviously. My husband grew up in Southern California. He played at Long Beach State. So it's not like we didn't know it, but it was just such a fun change from the grind of what felt like indoor sometimes. Was just this really super long season and because we have children, this was doable. We're like, wow, we can coach this.
So your husband played for Long Beach?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Played. So you played on the men's team.
Yes.
Right on.
Yeah. So he's actually he's awesome because I married him. He's awesome anyway. But he's part of the 1991 national championship team from that era. So
congratulations.
Yeah,
right
super
on.
cool. Yeah.
So your kids have the genes from both sides. Right on.
Yes,
That's
if
great.
only the genes were what translated into the desire to play. So far they're both playing, but we'll see.
Yeah, as we'll get into, I'm sure, there's more to volleyball than the physicality, whether you're 5'2" or 6'2", there is a big aspect of heart, big aspect of being a grinder, really loving the grind, loving the work. And it's a great way to organize, these little kids into becoming really good adults, really good human. I think this is a great premise for that. So anyway, is that us? It just sounds like a bomb's going. It was really loud. Yeah. Anyway, so let's transition to One Beach. Let's talk about One Beach for a little bit. You're a coach at One Beach.
Yes.
Yeah, and work with Ryan.
Yes.
And Ryan is a wonderful young man. I love him. His wife. They're I can't remember her name right now.
Kara.
Sorry,
Yes.
Kara. I forget your name all the time. Great people. I have nothing but great things to say about them. I met Ryan through his father.
Okay.
We used to play together. We still do on Sunday mornings out at Scottsdale Ranch Park. That's where all of us old geezers get together and play some ball. And Ryan was a young kid that was, dragged out there, but you could tell this guy was going to be something. Just athletically, he just jumps out of the gym. And super nice guy. So, I love the One Beach, what those guys bring, and you really need a community of beach volleyball clubs in town so that everybody gets better.
Yep.
Andrew from Tamarack was speaking specifically about the importance of Dakine to Tamarack, because those guys compete head to head, and they want to be able to meet and travel places and beat up on each other because their girls get better. And we have that with Mike's Greyhawk Club and obviously RPM, Ryan's RPM, and Volley for Life, Stealth. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few other ones, but we really do have a very healthy ecosystem of clubs in town right now. And you're at One Beach. So tell us how One Beach is going.
One Beach is awesome. So I actually met, this is crazy. So about 5 years ago, before all of this even was for me, was even a thing. I had this crazy wild thing to do a clinic. So my husband played again. He's like one of those old guys that knows everybody because he played with everybody. So he played club for a season with Dane Blanton. So we said, hey, what if we brought him out? It would be really cool. He could talk all the cool Olympian stuff. And so 5 years ago we did that. I get an email from Ryan, who I did not know at the time, and he said, hey, do you need help? And I'm like, yeah. So he came and helped at that clinic. And this is even before I was even really interested in coaching club and whatever. And then we kind of a little bit stayed in communication. Then I began coaching with One Beach on the west side where we live. And then was with him for a year and a half at ASU. And so I think we match values wise. We match in a lot of different ways. So that's been kind of the fit. And that's where I've just been hanging out for the last 2 years for club.
Fun. Yeah. How is it going? How do you manage keeping all the plates spinning with family, with the volleyball commitments? It takes a lot of time to be a club, to be a director on a club, to be a coach on a club. How do you manage all that?
Not well. I think I'm happy that the seasons are the way they are. So the seasons are somewhat shorter, I feel like, for me. So I can choose to do a block of, 6 to 8 weeks of, when I was coaching on the west side, you could do a block of coaching, and that works for my family. I schedule around the times that work for me. That obviously eliminates a lot of people, because if it's my schedule, then I'm not doing evenings and mornings. And so a lot of it is just figuring out and building up your coaching staff and that kind of thing. My kids have come to so many practices. That's just part of it. We try to minimize as much of that as possible, but you can't completely eliminate it. So we're just doing what we can while we have young kids, because they've got their own interests right now. We do soccer, and we do they do a little fitness class that they do. So it isn't balanced. Let's put it that way.
Well, it reminds me of a story that I heard from Butch May, Misty's dad, who's in another group of friends that are over there in Huntington Beach. You know, those old guys that get together and play early Sunday mornings. Butch talks about that Misty was in a diapers, and mom and dad were playing, you know, in a co-ed tournament or an open tournament right there on the beach, and Misty was sitting there literally in a diaper since she was 1 year old, watching volleyball on the side of the court, and grew up by the village. You know, when your parents are playing back then in the day, there's always some other parents that are not playing, and they kind of watch your kids for you, and so there's this, I think, a real good, healthy aspect. And Misty says, I learned a lot about the angles. I learned a lot about the chess match that two-person beach volleyball was, literally since I was a baby, and that really helped me know how to play, know positioning, spacing, where to put myself on the court. So she liked the fact that she was sitting on the beach all day long with her parents playing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that hopefully makes you feel a little bit better when you bring your kids to to practice.
The funny part is, I won't get into all my husband's stories, but I actually coached at Long Beach State for the first year, I think, second year out of college. I played in Europe for a season. I came out and coached with Brian, who's a phenomenal technician. I absolutely love learning from him. And so Misty was, I believe, a sophomore or a freshman the year that I was coaching there. And my husband is actually a big fan of Butch. So really likes Butch. So
yeah, and Misty, you know, she's really done a deep dive on a number of conversations about the troubles that their family have had and how they've worked their way through that. And I love it when people talk about obviously the good stuff, the accolades, the winning, but also, you know, what wasn't right, you know, what wasn't perfect. Because nobody shows up here perfect, right? No one gets perfect parenting. No one has all that. And the kids that do, sometimes it isn't perfect. You know, as you see, I see a lot of kids that, you know, there's entitlement. That there's too much, too easy, too early. And then, let's say they get a college scholarship, and this is boys and girls everywhere. I've seen a lot of these kids drop out of school after being flown all over the world to play, you know, to be basically a professional NCAA athlete. And then they come out and they don't have what they need. They're not ready to go. So how do you help them? I try to help them with humble reps. Like, hey, you know, you gotta know what your value is, and you got to build up your value. And a lot of it is being okay with letting people know that you got to figure out what your new normal is here. So anyway,
it's funny you say that, because like with my son, he's 12, so he's starting to get good at stuff, and his body is connecting, and he's good at a lot of things. He's already naturally pretty athletic, but he says that, like, we've been playing this game over, you know, the baseball net that you hit into to take practice reps, to take BP. We're playing over that to play onesies. So I play, like, I get 3 contacts, he gets 3 contacts, and we play one game to 15. And I smoke him. And he's like, Mom, I don't want you to let me win just because I'm your kid. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to let anybody win just because. He was laughing, but I agree. Humble reps. You got to keep them humble.
Humble reps are important.
Yeah.
Andrew talks about, I'm going to buy this book, but he had an amazing story yesterday, which resonates with me with mental toughness, and we'll get into that. But he said there's a book called Legacy that outlines this rugby team from New Zealand.
Absolutely.
And they clean the bathrooms.
Sweep the woodshed.
They sweep the woodshed. They do it for the opposing team's locker room as well. So I like that kind of, you know, that type of coaching, that type of direction, because when it's 18 all in our sport, who can get the last 3 points is directly related to did your coach teach you how to have a foundation that's solid, that won't blow away in the breeze. And it doesn't seem like, how is cleaning the bathroom going to help me be able to stand in there and win those last 3 points? It's on the 5-yard line for both teams. All you got to do is punch it into the end zone. But it's so tough when you're in the red zone to keep calm, to just keep the throttle right where it is. And coaches that make their players go home and thank someone. You know, somebody is sacrificing for you to be out here. Somebody drove you a million times to practice. Think of that. Could be an uncle, could be your mom or dad, could be your brother or sister, somebody. And you need a humble rep. You need to say heartfelt, with a heartfelt thank you for sacrificing some of your time, some of your money, some of your energy for me to be out here, because it's easy for these kids to forget about that. So I'm real big on tying them into the earth, so to speak. You know, getting them a good foundation and not letting them forget that there's a lot going on here for you to be out in the sand having fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
well, let's get into your book.
All right.
Let's talk about what your latest passion is here, your
Yes.
latest material. So you and I both share this fascination, this want to help people have a better framework, a better mental toughness, a better mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got this great book that tries to help them in a 30-day window. So let's talk.
Yes. So it's funny because as early as I can honestly remember, I've wanted to help, like, quote, help athletes, as early as high school graduation. And I had experienced, my club experience was really tough. I probably had a lot of like undiagnosed anxiety, a lot of very bad self-talk, and I didn't know how to manage a lot of that, nor did my coaches. My coaches had no clue at the time. You know, it's again back in the 80s, early 90s, where it's just work harder, do more kind of mentality. So I did. It actually works pretty good for a little bit, but it's not sustainable. And so over time, I've been thinking like, gosh, how do we work with some of these kids who are really fiery, some of these kids who have like, a quote bad attitude, like what's going on, right? And so my undergraduate degree is from the University of Georgia in psychology. I went back and got after playing and stopped playing, I went back and got my master's at Vanguard University in Costa Mesa in clinical psychology. And so I came out of the clinical world, but I was really close to being licensed, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to help. Not for the lack of a better word, I don't want to help like regular people. I was just wanting to help athletes. And what I realized is that athletes don't need help. And I say that smiling and joking because I was set up in a college clinic on a college campus specifically to help student athletes. And I got one. Meaning, we're not the population that's going to go seek help. Athletes are not the people who are going to say, hey, I'm hurting. Hey, I feel anxious. Hey, my game is suffering because my parents' financial situation is this, or my brother is sick or something. We just don't do that because we've been taught to be, quote, mentally tough.
Mm-hmm.
Push it all away, just perform, do what you're supposed to do, and everything else will take care of itself. So I just became very, I think, curious, really. I just started asking a lot of questions like, why aren't athletes doing this? And I graduated from my master's in 2005 or 2006, and wasn't coaching yet. So I was just literally just in a clinical setting trying to find these athletes to get them to come to me. And over time, I had my own children. I started coaching, all of these things. And a lot of those answers come when you have children and you begin to see youth sports and you're putting your kid in Little League and you're watching from the stands and you're sitting in the stands among all these parents. A lot of things begin to come clear. And so the curiosity of just continuing to ask questions is kind of what got me to where I reached out to my grad school buddy who, his name is Joe, has a company called the Reset Group. And I just started talking about all these things. And he's like, yes, me too. How do we do this? He played baseball and tennis in college. So we just started working together. And it was the conversations that really came about and made the journal happen. So that's kind of like the short and sweet of it. I don't know how much more you want of that, but
Yeah, so that's the 30-day. It's a journal.
Yes.
So the framework is, if you're sitting down with someone with this book, what's day one? Start from day one. What do you do? How do you get them prepped to get started?
All right. So the heart behind this, honestly, was yes for the players, but I really wish the coaches would do this with their teams because I'm such a huge believer in connection and relationship, and what the big buzzwords right now is like psychological safety in your teams. Pete Carroll had once said that if you can get them to trust you, if you can get them to know you see them, they will do anything for you.
Yeah.
Anything, and I'm such a believer of that. So part of this was to let's get these in coaches' hands. Let's let coaches facilitate these groups. But basically, it's every kid has heard that they're supposed to have a growth mindset. Everybody knows that. We all know that. We know we're supposed to breathe. We know we're supposed to be calm. We know we're supposed to do all of these things and visualize and whatever tools they've all heard. They've all heard the tools. The problem is I don't think they know how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what it means. Their parents don't know what it means. Their coaches don't really know what it means. Maybe you've read Mindset, by Carol Dweck, and you have a couple of terms there. So this takes you through 4 weeks of 30 days, so 4 weeks of different categories. Your first category, your first week is, what is your mindset? What is it? Who are the people in your life that are going to be kind of part of this journey for you? Where do you have distractions in your life? When you get stressed, where in your body do you feel this, right? That's the first week. The second week is, I'm trying to look here. I usually have them. Oh, defining your goals. So goal setting, talking about how we set goals. What are goals for us? Do they have to always be specific to volleyball? Will that goal help you with volleyball? Will that goal help you outside of life? Will it help you with school? Right. So any kind of goal that we're talking about, whether it's a specific skill goal that you want to get better at or a life goal. And I have them during that section. I have them dream. Like, I've gotten some cool stuff. There's I don't remember what page it's on, but there's one where we just dream. Oh, right here, day 8, and it's a big crazy goal. I've gotten I want to be editor of Vogue magazine. I want to be a fashion photographer. I want to travel the world. I want to play on the AVP tour. I want to play in college. I don't want to get C's next semester. I have seen the coolest stuff from these kids for goal setting. And then the next one is communication. We develop self-communication, so self-talk within myself as an athlete. And then what I love specifically is communication with our teammates. So whether you're on a football team, volleyball team with 6, a pair with 2, where that's a specific dynamic, communication with your coach, all kinds of communication that we have to do within the sporting context. And then the last one is taking ownership and responsibility. If we can't even take responsibility for the 2 hours we have for practice, that's going to be a challenge.
Sure. Yeah.
So
that it's a 4-week. I love the fact that you give them a week to just become aware of who they are, what they're feeling, where they're feeling it. That's really important. And also becoming having a third person observer role, taking that role, looking down on yourself and how am I acting and reacting in things? And is there something that may need to be remapped? Something that may not be serving me anymore, some action or some thought that we allow to harbor in our mind. I'm a big one on what are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to your partner? Specifically in that 10 or 15 seconds between serves. Our sport is very bursty.
Yep.
You play it in 5 to 10 second bursts, and then you got 10 or 15 seconds to get ready for the next play. And in that 10 or 15 seconds, I believe is where you make your money. Let's say your partner just got blocked for the second time in a row. What do you say to your partner? You see their body language, their head's down, they're defeated. You got 10 seconds to help your partner get back on the horse, get back going again.
yes.
So what you say to each other in that 10 seconds is really important. But we don't have a lot of time, so we need to boil it down to maybe a word or two that's from a conversation that we had off the court.
Yes.
So we can hit the reset button together and recall it, and you can help them pull back into a framework of the right amount of aggression and calmness at the same time, so you're ready for whatever is going to be the next. Because if you just got blocked for the second time, guess who's getting that next serve?
Yeah.
You're
Exactly.
getting it's coming right through your kitchen again. They're going to try you again.
Yep.
So how do you stop that before this game gets away from you?
Well, and I think that's you said before. So the biggest thing is when we go out to the sand, and I always ask them, what do you guys talk about? What's the first thing you and your partner talk about? Who we're going to serve? What's this? What's our strategy? What happens here? I've said, okay, awesome. Have you ever have you talked to your partner about how they like to be communicated with? We don't. Okay, how do you like to be do you like someone, because for me, I'm a player, don't talk to me. I don't want to hear anything. I know when I've made a mistake. I don't need someone cheerleading me. I don't like a lot of clapping and talking interaction. That's my style. But what if someone doesn't know that? And they're constantly correcting me and cheerleading me, and I'm going crazy, right? You can't fix that when you're on the sand. So I encourage all of them to sit with their pair at least before the tournament and say, hey, What are we gonna? How can I get you back in when you're out? How can I bring you back to the sand? What can I tell you? What can I say to you? Like, a lot of I know you used the word grounding earlier, but a lot of times I'll remind as a coach, I'll remind the players like, hey, keep your feet in the sand. Look down. Where are your feet? They're in the sand. That's all you got to worry about. But I encourage them to communicate with each other on communication styles. Like, what do you like? It's not a perfect science. They're young. They don't have all the skills that they need. But if we're going to spend time strategizing actual volleyball stuff, we should strategize communication. We should strategize mindset. Hey, what are you going to do? And again, I don't do this during playtime, but beforehand, what are you going to do when you are down 5 points? Well, why don't I think about being down 5 points? Well, you may get down 5 points. What's your strategy for when that happens? Because you can only say, we're fine. We're fine. It's good. We're fine. You can only do that for 1 or 2 points before you stop believing each other, right? Like if I've gotten ace 5 times, my partner keeps telling me, you're fine. I'm like, no, I'm not fine. Something's wrong, right? So I have to find a way for my partner to tell me beforehand if I'm down, how to get me out of that.
Sure. Yeah. Little suggestions that get traction. It reminds when you said that. It reminds me of a guy I played with early on. Wonderful guy. I still have friends ask me how Robert is doing.
Yeah.
Robert Culverk, if you're out there, and dude, I miss you. So many people miss you. You were a wonderful guy. And if he was in his zone, he'd take over the game. I just stand there. He dug behind, and I just don't net on the block, and he dug everything. He'd just take over tournaments like that. But one thing that was important, he was 7, 8 years younger than me, and he was off the boat from Romania.
Okay.
And I didn't realize this, and I can't tell you how many times I woke up feeling guilty that I didn't know this, but I became an older brother to him. I became a really important figure in his life. And between points, I loved Robert. Between points, if we didn't pop hands, right, he was not ready for the next game. He needed to physically ground himself by popping hands with me, or he could not get it going. So I didn't realize that for the first year we were playing. There was a couple of travel tournaments we went on, and he followed me around like a puppy dog. And I was like, why are you following me around? And again, I didn't realize that this guy just came off the boat, literally when he was like 12 years old, didn't speak the language. He was now like 24 years old. I was like 30, and he was still scared.
Yeah.
He needed, and my presence for some reason allowed him to settle down, feel safe, and then perform at a really high level.
Yes.
The next guy I played with was more like you.
Yeah.
You're over there. You take care of yourself. I'll take care of myself.
Yeah.
We'll talk when we need to.
Yeah.
Right? Which isn't very often.
And for me, I would say, even though I'm quiet, I know that if my partner needs me to be vocal, then I have to step out of my quiet comfort zone, and I have to be vocal. So again, it's not about me. Like, she can't just be someone who leaves me alone, and then I don't know how to communicate with her. Like, I can't be the only one that is getting that need, right? Like, I still have to step out of my own comfort zone. If somebody needs a cheerleader, I've got to get there.
Yeah.
So I think that's important too, is to realize that we're not going to fix each other, but there's synergy and there's a dynamic that we can certainly use the best of what we each have to create, what we're looking for, which is, I mean, most of us we want to win, we want to compete.
We want to win, absolutely. Well, if I don't win, I want it to be a tough loss.
I want to do my best.
I want to do my best and help my partner do their best. One of the things also that at this age, we're coaching these kids, they're teenagers, and sometimes they're not aware. There's this one girl we coached last year, and she said, I'm sorry, about 400 times a practice. Oh, I'm sorry. Priscilla, I'm sorry. I mean, you were looking for a roll of duct tape, after a little while. So I helped her become aware that when you say you're sorry, you're bringing the energy of the team into a direction you don't want.
Right.
We understand that you made an error. Yep. So let's talk about that in a bigger context. You are human beings. We are all human beings. Part of the human condition is that we're fallible. Even with best intentions, we screw things up all the time. So everyone knows that we're going to make errors. And in this sport, if you succeed roughly about half the time, you're going to win every tournament. And what are the percentages to win? And the kill percentages and the blocking percentages. So you know, inherent in this, going into it, you know, knowing that, becoming more kind of seasoned, that this isn't your first rodeo, is knowing you're going to fail about half the time.
Right.
And you don't have to say I'm sorry. You don't have
Yep.
to take that 10 or 15 seconds. You're taking 5 of that 10 seconds between points to apologize to your partner for the 37th time in the last 5 minutes.
Right.
Is that
Well,
what you want to do?
And the funny thing is, you know, again, I think there's the sports psych world, and then there's the clinical side, and I love that I came from the clinical side, because there's so many tools I can use that came directly from like talk therapy and all of the things that I got to experience. One of those is the reframing of any statement. So if I say I'm sorry, a lot of I statements are very emotionally charged, like, oh, like my bad, or I got to get you higher. Like that to me is an emotional. I did it. I'm the one that's wrong. And then we go through this place of like, I either need to start correcting myself or I'm going to feel bad about myself, right? So if I can reframe that statement to, you need a higher set, instead of saying, I got to get you higher, I can say, you need a higher set. Now,
Smart.
guess what? Now I'm not focused on my mistake. I'm focused on her. What can I do for you? Because I want you to get a kill. If I'm not going to swing, I want you to get that kill. So I need to, not I need to get you higher, but you need a higher ball for me. You need a better pass. You need this. Like I'm saying that for myself as I'm talking to myself as a third person versus I'll get you higher, or I'll get that one, or whatever. So it just it attaches emotion to it.
It does, and it gets heavy. Right.
Quick, especially
Yeah.
if you're, I mean, I'm going to be 46 tomorrow. It's like if I'm 46, I can handle a lot of that. But if I'm 12 or I'm 13 and I'm already insecure about not making a good play, that's
Right.
going to compound that. So
Yeah.
reframing a lot of that stuff when they're young is huge.
It really is. And when I do mental toughness with the kids, I ask them, "What do you want to work on today?" And I've got a bunch of different you know, categories, as I'm sure you do, and I'll make a few suggestions. And you know what they all want? They all want the discussion that I basically call ego strengthening. All they want to know is that everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And it has nothing, this conversation has nothing to do with volleyball.
Yeah.
We've got all this specific volleyball stuff that I've worked on with pros, you know, where to put your feet, you know, how to be comfortable with that team that you're 0-7, you know, that team that never got your best game, that team where you look in the bracket and you say, oh my God, we got to play them next. And you've already lost because you just looked at the bracket and you've never beaten them. So you're already tight.
I've already heard that so many times. Yes.
How do you get through that team?
Yeah.
You want to win a tournament? That team is going to be there probably for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So you got to get through them. How do you get through them? How do you like take the momentum from them, tighten them up? So we've had all these different, you know, innuendos, all this idiosyncrasy of the game. All they want to talk about is that life's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That I'm okay right where I am, right here, right now. I'm okay. By far, that's the one thing that all these kids want, is just to know everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then they can just play it. They can just let their training and let everything come out
Yes.
on the court
Yeah.
with a light heart, with light, fast feet. So a lot of this is, we think it's sport specific, but really it is all around just helping these kids become, you know, mature adults.
Yeah. And you know, I've taken, let's see, I did a group of One Beach athletes. I worked with these kids during the quarantine because there was a lot of just downtime and things. So I worked with a group of One Beach kids. We did a group call and an individual call every week. Then I worked with a group of Stealth kids, group call, individual call. And, you know, the magic isn't necessarily in the journal. The magic isn't in the prompts that I wrote. Now, they do progress. It's going to help you. It's going to bring you self-awareness. There's tons of research to show that the actual physical writing of something is going to stimulate neurons in your brain than if you're going to put it in your notes in your phone or if you're going to speak it. It's a completely different set of neural pathways that we're stimulating that continues to help us grow that way. So the journal is, yes. Does it work? It's been researched. Yes. There's research behind journaling and the benefits of it. But the part that's the important part is the habit of it. It's the habit of getting up every day and spending 15 minutes on your mindset, spending 15 minutes on yourself, spending 15 minutes becoming more self-aware. And then the individual calls with me, I really just, again, you're containing, you're holding, you're listening. you are creating a connection, and ultimately you're getting them to believe they already have these skills. Because that was my favorite part, is listening to them and being like, they already have them. These kids use the same skills for math tests. They use these same skills for when they have to stand up in front of their class and present on world history or whatever. They have these skills. I've worked with a competitive gymnast. I work with a competitive cheerleader. And I'm like, dude, you've already been in some of the biggest arenas that are so stressful. Like I want them to understand they already possess so much of this, and giving them that belief to say, ooh, now let's just turn it on for volleyball.
Yeah, if you've been there once, there's a chance you're going to be able to figure it out and be there again.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's the confidence of then somebody telling them that they have that. Like, you already have this. Let's use it.
It's just a different arena. It's the same skill set. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the girls we worked with last year didn't talk for a long time, and she was playing good. We knew there was a really good athlete in there. And then she had a great tournament. And the next week in practice, I said, wow, you played great. You played better than you have in the last few months. What happened? What changed? What do you think that was about? You know what she said?
What changed? That's such a good question.
What she said was, it helped me realize the importance of this work. She said, I had dinner with my dad.
For sure.
My dad found some time. I was able to go over to his house. And we just had dinner this week.
Yep.
So there was some father hunger there, or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
That she was able to plug in with dad. Everything in the world is okay now when she was able to plug into dad, and then she could go out there and just play, with that light heart. So
yeah, no, and I think that is the confidence piece. I think that people think confidence is swagger. It's your outfit that you put on. You come in on it, you walk on the sand a certain way. Like, that's part of it. Talent can bring confidence, but I really think that confidence is turned on when we know we can access the talent that we have. If the fear and the things that kind of like sabotage us are when we can't turn on the talent we know we already have. Like, you lost 2 points, you didn't get any worse at volleyball. You didn't have the confidence to execute and find what was in there, right? So now we just got to reset and find the confidence for the talent we know we have, access it, and pull it out. Now, there are going to be better teams than us, and that's just going to be the way it is. But, there's so much confusion between mental toughness and confidence and all these things. But everything is really, really draws back to the skills of resiliency, grit, adaptability, learning on the fly so that we can actually adjust things in between. So, right, like, I don't want to just teach them how to adjust off. I want them to adjust within the 21 points we have, right? Like, we can't really coach you. You're on your own for 7 at least before we side switch. So that to me is the benefit of all of these things, whether it's mental, you call it mental toughness or confidence or whatever. It's actually building emotional resiliency, which is going to help you everywhere, all through life. I was telling a friend a couple days ago that we grew up in the Hovland Dodd era, Karch Cry, St. John, and Hovland would scream at the refs. A lot of the guys did, but Hovland was especially good at it. And so a lot of the players wanted to be like the pros. So everybody got to screaming at each other, and if you lost a match, of course, you're reffing the next on that game. And I'd never been screamed at. I have never been called so many names until I started playing beach volleyball. And it was a little traumatizing at first. But then the 400th time you were screamed at, I can't tell you how important and valuable that has been in my business life. When I'm sitting down in a tough negotiation, I used to work at Intel and Intel Capital, and we're doing deals, and sometimes these are complex, week-long negotiations. So, you got to be able to just stay there when people are trying this tactic or that tactic on you. And I had this one guy that used to come up, and he'd say, before we'd start a match, he'd say, "Hey, Tom, how you doing?" "Good, doing fine." "Hey, how's your mom? How's your mom doing?" And I'm thinking, why is this guy asking me about my mom, right? Yeah.
Well, he's just trying to get me off my game, right? He's trying to get me to think about something other than playing against him in a volleyball game that's going to start in 3 seconds, So anyway, there's a lot of, caginess and that kind of thing. But I've learned a lot. I've gotten a thicker skin out here, and I try to give that to the girls.
Yeah.
I try to, do things that they're not expecting, and they get it. They understand my premise is that you're going to have to play when it's windy out or when the conditions aren't perfect inside or out. There's going to be distractions that you got to be able to block out all that noise and focus on this game.
Right.
And get that next point. So all that stuff is really good for later on in life as well. So these are really good life skills that these kids are learning.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things to me that I love to do is, and I love that dream big bubble that I have them do. I posted it on One Beach recently, but to figure out who they are too, besides the silo of beach volleyball player, helping them know like that some of the fun things that come out of that is like that knowing they are three-dimensional people. They are not just one role. And I think as coaches, sometimes it's easy to think of like, oh, they're this is how they play, this is who they are. But we have to constantly be remembering that they are robust kids with dreams and goals, just like the rest of us. That figuring out that identity piece as well. When I finished playing, it was a really difficult drop for me. My only identity was volleyball player.
Right.
And so that was something I had to figure out and manage on my own, which was, whatever. But I guess, and now I know that path and I can help other kids. Now instead of just seeing them as volleyball players, I want to see them as, kids with hopes and dreams and all that. So yeah, I think that part is as well as helping them develop all aspects of who they are. And not just developing the one role that maybe is very stressful. We develop all the other roles too.
You're absolutely right. We're lucky. We got their attention for just a small period of time, just maybe a few years. And the only reason that they listen to us is because of that ball. The medium is the volleyball.
Yes.
And we might be teaching them where, how to pass, a good platform and all that, but you and I know it's a bigger, lesson that's going on here. And if we can help them along a little better in volleyball, that's great. But what's most important is the trust their parents put in us to help raise them, to help shape them and form them. That's what I take really seriously here.
Yeah.
And returning them as better human beings, ready for the falls in life that are going to come.
Yeah.
Obviously the big carrot out there for all these girls right now is is what's happened the last 10 years. There's a carrot now.
Yeah.
There's a big college scholarship carrot out there. And that's good, but life doesn't end when you're 22 and you're finished with college. And there can be that big letdown after you get just dumped out of that system where you're treated very well. And now you're on your own, maybe, not completely on your own, but soon you'll be on your own. And are you ready for that?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the long view that I'm looking at. So if we can get them ready for winning some tournaments and catching a coach's eye and maybe getting some money thrown at them for college, great. But it doesn't end there. That's not even halftime.
Yeah. And I've always said that too. Like I've had coaches literally ask me like, why do you care about these kids so much? Like, why do you get invested? Why do you worry about this stuff? And I'm like, how can you not? I've got to get them for 2 hours, 3 times a week. It's all I've got to do. I've got to give everything I have for 2 hours. Like I see my children and my husband, and they get me all the time. But these kids, for 2 hours, 3 times a week, however many times we have practice, you go all in. I mean, I'm not texting them and like Snapchatting them and doing any of that stuff, but for the 2 hours on the court, that's their time. Hey, how are you? How's life? How's your house? How's your home? How's your whatever? I know your cat was sick or your dog was sick. How's all that going? We can't afford to just say that's not part of my job anymore. There's too much at stake. I think again with the mental illness percentages rising in not only collegiate athletes but youth athletes, with girls quitting sports at rapid rates at the age of 50. They actually quit sooner than boys quit, and then they don't return back. I mean, I feel like we have a responsibility to, especially if we're coaching young women, to be there for them. There's too many other things going on.
Yeah. On that note, I ran across some research. Have you heard about Norway? What they're doing with their kids in Norway? So
Maybe, I don't know.
They got the attention at the last Winter Olympics. They won like 13 gold medals.
Okay.
And proportionally, they should have won like 1. So people were asking, what are they doing up there? And it's a federal law in Norway I don't know if the age was 14 or 15, but it's a federal law in Norway to not keep score for kids in anything, soccer, baseball, volleyball, or anything. And their research there says before, let's say it's 15 years old, I don't know, it's somewhere in the mid-teens. Before 15 years old, you can't tell. You think you can tell who the who the Olympians are going to be,
Right.
but you cannot tell. What you can do though is you can burn some that could have been Olympians out by
Sure.
15. So they say we don't keep score 15. What we do is we put skis on them, we put skates on them, and we have them compete without score and just have fun. And the giggles, what we count are giggles. What we count are laughs. What we count is we want these kids to be active, and they'll figure out, maybe who is a little better here or there. But what they're doing is enjoying their activity. And I've seen it. I'm sure you have too. Some of these kids, I mean, I can think of 4 or 5 right now that are 15 years old. They won everything for a couple of years, and they're done. They needed to walk away from the sport for 6 months. So I think they, I don't know a lot about it, but it's caught my eye, and I want to research it more because of the results that they're getting. And what you and I have experienced here is
Right.
there's something to be said for keeping score. There's also something to be said for just the love of the game.
Right.
Let's instill the love of the game as well, and not just worry about, hey, did you get your 500 reps this week? Well, did you have fun also this week? It's got to be fun. No reason why we can't have fun doing this as well.
Well, it's funny because like people are always asking, like, what are you doing with your kids? What do you do with your kids? Like, because both my husband and I played a college sport, and I think they're curious as to what's the formula? How did you do it? And honestly, we're of that mindset of just, we're going to have fun until the kid drives the bus, until the kid is saying, I want to do this all the time. I am not driving you. I am not forcing you down any path. Now, if we do something and, they want out just because they're tired, it's like, no, we're still going to go, that kind of thing. But, in fact, we actually put them in volleyball because I need the carpool lane to get to Castile from Litchfield Park. It takes me about an hour, but they're my ride. But, if I am sitting here arguing over a baseball belt and a jersey, and because I want it more than the kid wants it, like, forget it.
Right.
We will find out what they love when they are doing it in the backyard by themselves, when they are coming to us and saying, hey, I want to try this, or, oh, my buddies are doing this, or and so we're a little bit like that. We're a little bit anti-youth sports, even though my husband and I both love and coach sports with our own children. We're just waiting for that moment. Again, nurturing what they're doing.
Yes.
We're not like keeping them from things, but it's a completely different. My husband and I, Rich and I, have already had our own experience. I don't need to live that through them. I don't need them to do anything for me. If they do, that's awesome. That'd be super cool to watch. But at this point, like, I've had a lot of success. I don't need my kid to do it because I lack that. So I know that's a totally different framework than I think what we see when we go to like our youth sports stuff. But
it could be better.
I don't know if it works. I have no idea. I have no clue.
Well, what I see is I see probably what you see is that there's it can improve, definitely improve. I'm a contrarian, like it sounds like you are as well. And I heard something from Pat Powers, who has 2 gold medals and about 30 AVP Pro wins, and he goes around the country and coaches young girls. And he's tried everything. He said, I don't do beach because you just can't get the numbers. This is a business for me. And I give 2 days. I give it hard for 2 days. It's about $100, $110. He's asked Mike and I to come and help coach when he's here in town over at Kingdom Sports. And I always say yes because I learn something from him every time. And so this last time he gave Mike and I the 4th court, which is the girls that are brand new, right? And so it's Shankville. I mean, but he knew that Mike and I had the patience, and we had the ability to keep it rolling so everybody gets some reps and still has fun, not worried so much about results. Just keep moving around, right? That's what the parents are paying for.
Yeah.
And then after he said something that resonates. He goes, guys, the gold is in bad volleyball. The gold is in the bad volleyball. It's not in the good volleyball. These he had brought about 100 kids, and maybe 5 of them, were skilled up enough to make a high school team. And he goes, this is what I love. I love, the good money, for him is in bad volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
And that has driven, that's become like a bellwether for me in creating Beach Fest. And this year we had to go towards really good elite volleyball because of the COVID.
Yeah.
But Mike will tell you, I want to start corporate volleyball.
Yeah.
I want to do 6-on-6s. I want to go into the mud. There's a retention area that's right across the area. We have a meeting actually later today with the management team here. I want to start Scottsdale Mudfest.
Oh my gosh.
It should probably be called Swamp Fest
Yeah.
because it's going to be up to your knees in mud, and it's so much fun,
Yeah.
and everybody can play it. You don't have to jump, you don't have to do anything. So that's the direction that I want to go now in my life,
Yeah.
right? The pinnacle and trying to be elite and all of that, that's good, but I like it over here for the masses, so everybody can enjoy the sport and have some fun in it, and not worry about whether the net's completely tuned right and all of that. So I mean, I'm a perfectionist.
Yes.
I like having good gear and good facilities for this level, but I also am really interested to follow what Pat Powers says, and says the fun, the gold, the money is in bad volleyball. So don't forget, that's where the fun is, is in those beginning years when you're learning. You're so excited to get out there and just have your first experiences.
Yes.
And volleyball can give you wonderful, wonderful first experiences.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was teasing Ryan. I'm like, dude, like the last age group I coached before this was college, and he has me with a group of 12s. 3 of the 12s who are 4th graders, 2 4th graders and a 5th grader. So I can't barely even like serve from the 10-foot line.
Right.
But oh my goodness, I've had so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
It has been so much fun. They love it. They don't know that they need to serve from the end line. They don't even care. It has been the funnest thing. My daughter's part of that group as well, but she's 9. And it's taught me new language for the sport, like how to speak the skills, how to speak to them for like someone who's just starting. It's helped me learn so much about, again, that light that goes on for a young kid when they do something and they have that first success.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of those little, they're 9, 9, and 10. All 3 of them can officially serve over the net from the 10-foot line. It is the best thing ever. So some of that stuff is, it's like, you find yourself like kind of morphing as you get older and what you want to do with the sport and what you can contribute, where your gifts are, what it looks like.
Right. Yeah. I try to be like senior. Mike's got this coach, Dave Pataki Sr. We also have Dave Pataki Jr. Great guys. Grew up with, Dave Sr. is one of the guys that we play on Sunday mornings at Scottsdale Ranch, and Dave Jr. grew up along with Bobby and a few others. And Dave Sr. takes our 9 and 10-year-olds at a lot of practices, and I watched him just rep after rep after rep for these kids. And I'm like, I need to learn that. I need to be better at what he does. He has so much patience with them. So I try to, when I'm tired or when I don't want to chase the ball down again, I just try to remember how does senior do it? Just bring senior's energy, forward for these kids, because all he has is just a giggle fest over there. The kids are having a great time, and they don't care whether they're passing or shanking. They don't care. Yeah. They're just happy to be out there and running around in the sand with their shoes off.
Yeah, when I get to spray the courts down, is their favorite part. They're like, water day.
Yeah. And when we get new parents coming in, they're like, what can we expect? I say the first thing you can expect is that your kid is going to get an hour and a half running around. We will run them like a rented mule for an hour and a half, and they will not be on their cell phone.
Yeah.
And everything above that today is gravy.
Yeah.
So, and then I watch them, and most of them get it. Most of them understand that really is what's important, is they're getting some exercise.
Yeah.
They're not on, they don't have anything, no tech gear in their hand, and they're learning how to grind literally through the sand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny because I go back and forth because I want them to know, want them to also have some knowledge of the game. So we're not just like playing fun. So we do a lot of things that are, fun. Like I actually brought an inner tube that looks like a donut. So we have to pass into the donut, for 5 or whatever. But, I make them pokey. Like if you're too tight to the net, we're going to pokey. We're going to try to get over that. Like the little ones have like pokey contests. How many can you get in a row before we start practice? I have had them take balls overhead. So I hit it hard at their face.
Right.
And I said, "Okay, put your hands up." And they're like, "Ah," they're scared at first, but then they kind of like it because they know it. I'm not hitting hard, but it's just that flat high ball, but just the success of that and breaking them of that hand setting thing that they do from indoor or whatever else. So there's a lot of even just method to the madness, even though it looks like a lot of fun. I'm still trying to get them to, if they do love it and they end up in 14s, that they have some knowledge of there's other skills, besides
Right.
passing and setting and that and whatever. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's fun.
Hiding exercise and fun.
Yes.
That's a real skill. And if you can get the kids out there laughing and giggling, and maybe a couple of years later, they're like, oh, okay, now I understand
yeah.
why we had the pokey contest, or
Totally.
why she was just driving, just hammering balls right at my face. It's kind of fun, actually.
Well, because it is kind of fun. Like, they're excited when they get
Yeah.
it. And again, it's not hard. Like,
Yeah.
I hit them hard at the 18s, but
Right.
it's exciting when they're successful at something. They
Yeah,
love
it
it.
is.
So
Well, this has been wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been great to get to know you a little bit better. And your book, I think it's a great idea. Anything I can do to help, promote it anymore, I'd be happy to.
awesome.
But thank you for supporting BeachFest.
Yes,
And
I love it.
we've got 2 more days. We've got the pros coming tomorrow, and then we got the Masters on Sunday, and then I think we're going to put it back in the box for a year. But we plan to roll it out again next year, and hopefully One Beach and Greyhawk Beach will be competing against each other again. And
Yes.
anyway, it's been wonderful to talk with you, and good luck this year with
Yeah.
with the rest of your season.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, and finish out the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Awesome.
Oh, good stuff.
Do you have to turn it
Yeah,
off
just
or
push
anything, or?
Yeah, I'll turn it off over there. That was good.
Yeah. Super cool.
Here's your bag. It's nice to sit up here. We must be done with the morning wave. I love Alan, how he can just.
Yeah. Which
He's
one is
just-
Alan? I feel like I've met him in person. I feel like maybe a handful of times.
He's on the tripod right now.
Okay,
Alan
that's right.
Alexander runs Sand Club. He's over at Mesquite.
Yes, when I first started to like even entertain playing, that's the first place I went was fours at the Sand Club.
Oh right, yeah.
But I put myself, because I just didn't know, because again I came from California, so but I put myself in like Division D, and they were like,
A little
"Play
higher in D.
before?" And I was like, a lot. So then I didn't, and then it started being where it was like, and I live in Litchfield Park, so then it started to be, it was like starting at 8 o'clock.
Oh, he's way over there.
They were practicing it somewhere, Green Creek, I don't even know, somewhere.
Right.
I was like, I can't do this. So maybe now that my kids are a tiny bit older.
How do you like that Wilson bed?